Hey, good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack here. Friday now, the 24th of January, 2025. Everybody doing okay after the big snow and cold event? Hopefully so. Lots of people missing school and work. My kids, 3 days of school. We're going to have to make that up at some point. Probably going to go to school further into June. But what can you do? So the good news is, big warm-up is coming. You know that this cold is not going to last forever. But it was really substantial. A lot of disruptions. I mean, look at all the highways, the bridges and whatnot, the interstates that were closed along the Gulf Coast states. And now we're going to start warming things up in the coming days. We'll take a look at that. We're also going to take a look at what these temperatures did, this big chunk of Siberian air did for sea surface temperature anomalies in the Gulf of Mexico. I was very curious to see how that cold air advection, that's the lateral or horizontal movement of air, the big chunk of cold air, what would that do to the Gulf temps? And I was actually surprised, and you might be as well. So I'll take a look at that and other little odds and ends related to the weather in the next several minutes here. So thanks for tuning in. Let's get rid of me for just a moment, and let's get started, all right? First of all, over in the United Kingdom, up in Ireland, Scotland, that area, wow, Storm Éowyn, Lord of the Rings fans out there, maybe? And I really like that these different agencies over here officially name these powerful storms. I think it's a lot easier to keep up with them rather than, do you remember that storm in late January 2025? You know, why not? You know, humans need to classify and name everything, so I agree with this. I think it should be an official thing in the United States, but I have no control over that. That's just my opinion. Right now, it is a corporate-owned thing, but over in the UK and elsewhere, I guess they work together, and it's an official thing that they do. And Storm Éowyn really packing a punch here. In fact, let me go back in my Twitter feed, scroll down to this one. Look at this chap trying to get those wind readings. I hear ya. That's my kind of weather right there. I'd love to park an SUV up there with an anemometer on top, aim it into the wind properly. You could probably get some incredible wind readings. That lad there, man, that is really rough, doing his best to get some terrific wind readings, I am sure, from that knoll up there overlooking the water. Wow, 118 miles per hour. I mean, goodness. So yeah, that storm system got its start after all of this was laid down across the northern Gulf Coast states. You probably saw this satellite shot, a beautiful high-resolution visible satellite shot. Snow deep into the coastal Texas area, all across the Louisiana swamps and bayous, through Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and then up into the southeast, including the coastal plain of the Carolinas and Virginia. And it's really interesting to me. I know a lot of people down here in Louisiana because of hurricanes, and they were sending me plenty of videos and pictures of what was happening there. Many inches of snow, in some cases approaching a foot. You saw what happened in and around the Big Easy down here. Interstates, highways coming in, bridges closed. Heck, you know, many dozens, 200 miles, whatever it was, of I-10 in Florida were closed. This was a disruptive, big-time event. But the good news is, again, it's going to start warming up, and we're not going to have to worry about it too much longer. Real quick, want to just show off a little bit of the drone activity here from yours truly in Wrightsville Beach. Normally in the summertime, this beach is packed with sunbathers and vacationers, and in some cases surfers, where they are allowed to do so. But the other day, this was early in the morning. I don't even know what the heck day it was. What was that, Wednesday? Nobody out there to speak of, just a couple of people walking their dog, and that is about it. Really rare to see, especially snow occurring all the way down to the ocean. And the ocean, by the way, the water temperature, I saw National Weather Service in Wilmington posted yesterday that the water temperature, by the way, that is Johnny Mercer Pier right there, and there is a sensor on it, and they do water temperatures and wind readings and all that kind of stuff. It's a NOAA sensor. 40 degrees in the surf temperature out here. 40 degrees colder than it would be, say, in June or July. Usually we get into the low 80s. Wow, that is really, really cold. I have not seen it that cold since, I think, 2018. All right? So this is what it looks like today. Let's move on from the past, and we'll get into the present and then into the future. A little bit of snowpack remaining down across portions of Louisiana where it was pretty prevalent and very deep, of course. And you can even see some of that snowpack here in Georgia and the Carolinas. But this will all be melting away. The snow in my yard is gradually melting away. The shadowy areas where the sun isn't shining often, that snow will remain for several more days. But it's going to warm up, the pattern is going to change, and it's going to be very pleasant as we approach the weekend. It is almost the weekend, but certainly early next week. Because what's going to happen, we're going to get a nice big ridge setting back up over the western Atlantic. It's sitting out there now, but it's going to nose its way more to the west, and we're going to take the jet stream from going like this and kind of flatten things out more and drop a big upper level low over the southwest United States, finally bringing our friends in Southern California some much needed moisture in the form of mountain snow and lower elevation rain. We really, really need that, and it is coming. All right, so yes, the 8 to 14 day temperature and precip outlooks. This was a post, an infographic from the National Weather Service out of Newport, Morehead City, in my neck of the woods. My weather forecast office is Wilmington, but I just noticed this on the Weather Service office out of Newport, Morehead City's Twitter page. And over the next 2 weeks, above normal temperatures favored over the southern half of the United States is, I think, a pretty good call on that mathematically. And then much of the country, this is good to see, above normal to near normal precip. I mean, you need it. We need the moisture. Below normal, unfortunately, in the southwest, where it just continues to be very, very dry. In fact, I got to ask my friend Tracy out here in Vegas. They have not seen rain in like 6 months. And I need to ask her, has that changed lately? I don't think it has, but I think it's going to change soon, and I will show you that as we go forward here. First of all, let's look at the temperatures here. This is the current situation. This is your 2-meter temperature anomaly. Remember what anomalies are. Those are departures from some kind of a base state. And in this case, the base state going back to 2010 to 81. That's the climatological period that we're looking at. And all these deep blues through here, purples even, well below normal at about 6 feet above the surface of the planet. 2 meters. Very warm compared to normal up in Canada. Why? Because all the cold air came down here. It makes total sense. You can't have cold air everywhere. This isn't, that world on Interstellar. What was that? Miller's World? I can't remember. It's a great movie, but it's not Hoth from Empire Strikes Back. And it's not The Day After Tomorrow where everything is cold. And I'm being serious here. You do dislodge these chunks of air. That's what's pretty fascinating about it. They're very large blobs of air, not meteorologically accurate, and they move around. And so where one air mass gets displaced, another one replaces it, and it's either warm or cold. The planet is in this ongoing battle of heat versus cold, and it's all driven by the sun. And the sun heats the ground then heats the air around it. And the low sun angle in the northern hemisphere with all the land mass we've got tends to cool off significantly, and you get these areas of air that pile up over Siberia, over these large land masses, over the plains and the flat areas. There are some in Alaska and Canada, outside of the mountainous regions, obviously. And then that cold air gets moving with different mechanisms like the polar vortex shifting and so forth and so on. And you can see that as I move the map. See how these air masses move? We can go back even just a little bit further and look at how ridiculously cold it was relative to normal over much of the United States. But that's starting to change, and we're going to flip the pattern to be a lot warmer as we go forward. This is day 5, finally through day 6. A little bit of a cold shot again, but the source region for our air over the lower 48 is not going to be coming out of Siberia, what we call cross-polar flow, but an occasional piece will drop down in the northeast U.S., parts of southeast Canada, and then the Pacific air mass is going to start to take over. As we can see on the jet stream configuration, this is where we are now. There's your northwest flow still feeding into the lower 48, and so it's darn cold still. But that is going to change, and you can see this starts to flatten out. We do pinch off that upper level low in the southwest and western United States. That's great for them. But generally, the deep troughing is going to affect the northern tier states and not dip all the way down to the Gulf. All right? And that's great. The I-10 corridor, even I-20, looking good as we exit the month of January and get into February. And then notice, see this red down here? I'll use black to highlight it. All that red, that is your heights in the atmosphere. And we're looking at 588 to 594 height field down here in the Caribbean. And that is going to lead me to what I want to show you coming up soon. This warm pattern going to stick around. Not really a January thaw. I guess we still have a week in the month, so maybe it is a January thaw. But this is going to last into February because we're going to get that big ridge starting to poke up again in the western Atlantic and northern Caribbean. And that's going to help to warm things up and flatten the pattern overall so that finally, once we're out about near day 10, notice we're in more zonal flow across the country, the source region being the Pacific rather than Siberia or the North Pole or northwest Canada. And if we look at it from a sensible weather perspective, the greens is rain, the blues is snow, and so forth, this is what we got. Again, coming out the next few days, finally some precip in Southern California, and I think Vegas, you're finally going to get some rain. So my friend Tracy out there, she works for the Las Vegas Review-Journal now, after being in television for many decades. We're old enough now that I can say that. How about that? They're finally going to get some rain, so I'll have to ask her. It'll be interesting to see what the sphere does. They always do these really weird, cute things. Maybe when they finally get some rain, they'll do something cute with the sphere out there. Anyway, all in all, kind of a dryish pattern. Nothing major over the next 5 days or so. Just a few random little storms. And by the way, there you go, overrunning moisture in the southeast, not frozen this time because the air mass not going to be cold enough by far. So that's fine. One snow event, I'm happy. And then you notice too the northwest flow pattern continuing across the northern tier states. So if you live up there, you're stuck in winter until probably April or something. That's just the way it goes. Now I am keeping an eye on this. This is about a week out, almost a week out. Pretty good chunk of air, Arctic air sitting here over Missouri. Kind of slides in the pattern a little bit there. And there's enough deep cold air in place that New Mexico, especially, and parts of the Texas Panhandle, could be in for some frozen precip. And that's interesting to me. I'll keep an eye on that. I might want to go out there and cover that. I'd go out there for hail and the monsoon in the summer and whatnot, and to see it in the wintry setup, that could be interesting. So we'll see how that pans out. That's about a week out. And then that storm system warms up, lifts north and east, and maybe some severe weather. When I see that, I think, okay. And then look what's happening. See these isobars? They're coming in across the Gulf of Mexico into the southeast, and that pumps that warm, unstable air up there, and we could be looking at the potential for some severe weather down the road a piece as we transition from the cold back into a warmer pattern. We're going to have to watch that, these mid-latitude cyclones pulling in that Gulf moisture. Speaking of the Gulf, all right, here's the deal. We were all watching this giant Siberian air mass coming down, and there were several people, I know we had it on our Discord, and we were talking about it, even a few people on YouTube the other day. Will the cold air mass erode away these anomalies here in the Gulf? And we figured, certainly they will, because we were talking such cold relative to average. So what I did is I saved these snapshots of the Gulf region from the NOAA site there on the 21st, the 22nd, and then yesterday. They're always a day behind. So I'm going to keep doing this, and then when we look at this again on Monday, we'll really get a good comparison. But this is what we were looking at on the 21st when this system was just starting to anchor itself down into the lower 48, right? And the Gulf of Mexico temperatures here well above normal right here in the central Gulf, considerably above normal elsewhere. Pretty good pool of colder than normal in the eastern part of the Gulf. And we were all thinking, all right, this is certainly going to take a hit. So if the 23rd was yesterday, that would be Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. So this is Tuesday. Got to do the math here. So this is Tuesday. This is Wednesday when the storm was in full swing. You know, like the cold air was already down there. And yes, we did shave it off just a little bit. And I know we're splitting hairs here, but watch. You can see it's pretty sharp. And then, whomp, it kind of takes a hit. But then, much to my surprise, yesterday, it comes back. Now, I know you might be going, there's no way. Something's wrong, whatever. No, nothing's wrong. Well, something's wrong with the system down here. Everything's screwed up because this is not supposed to be happening. And I think what's going on is there is so much ample warm water relative to average coming through the Caribbean, out of the tropical Atlantic, and we're going to broaden the shot in just a minute and I'll show you, that it's just constantly feeding the Gulf with deep, warm water. So even though the cold air advection comes in, again, that's that lateral movement of cold air. Think about when you open your freezer, you get a deep freezer, and see that cold air spill down and then it spreads out across the floor. You see that vapor kind of stuff? That's advection. It moves laterally. Cold air in this situation was pretty shallow, only a few thousand feet thick. It's not all the way, we're not all encompassing like Pluto or something where it's just deep cold everywhere. It's a shallow cold air mass, so it's spilled across the Gulf, and then it's easily scoured out. And then underneath all of that surface, because this is sea surface temperatures, is that warm water source constantly feeding. You see, that's my theory. I'd have to talk to somebody like Michael Lowry, and because he's really up on this stuff, and get his thoughts on it. Because what's happening, the very warm Atlantic over here, look at this, those anomalies are still at least a degree Celsius warmer than average. So your fuel source to just keep feeding the Gulf is there, because that western Atlantic ridge is still sitting out here, and we don't have a big screaming high over here to cool all this water down. The trade winds are just not there. All right, and I'm going to show you all this in more detail on Monday when we take a broader look at things related to the next hurricane season. That's always on a Monday. I try to do that every Monday. But that's what I think's happening, that there's just so much warmth in the Atlantic that it's feeding over here, and it's not a surprise. To me, it's explainable of why we've got that very positive anomaly still sitting in the central Gulf. All right? So we'll see. I mean, and this will have implications for the rest of the winter, spring severe weather season. In fact, I will add this. I think that very warm water helped to create that baroclinic zone that we saw in the Gulf that led to, because you think about it, we had that insanely cold air mass meeting the very warm, unstable air of the Gulf, and that battleground setup, that boundary, overran the top of the cold air, and we got the precip, and then that storm went on to become that over the Atlantic. That's exactly where that came from. All that energy, we call that baroclinic energy, instead of the source being the release of latent heat like in hurricanes, it's like temperature differences and that huge gradient, and that was certainly prevalent. This is just fascinating to me. It's too bad that we can, we have the negative side of it. Car accidents, things shut down, whatever, the cold air that affects people, the big storm in the British Isles and so forth. Yes, they do have negative side effects, but certainly fascinating to see, in my opinion, outside of those negative effects. All right? So we'll end this on a positive note. Big warm-up is coming. Hope you've enjoyed the snow. It's fleeting. It's going to be gone. So take those pictures. I'm sure you have. And that'll be that until the next time, right? We'll see how that evolves going forward. So look, have a great weekend. And as always, thank you for tuning in. And all the new subscribers that jumped on after the other video the other day, A lot of views on that video. I appreciate that very much, that you trust me enough to subscribe to the channel. And on Monday, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff related to the rest of the year. Some big plans we've got, so make sure you tune in to the live thing that I do, the YouTube Live, around 9 o'clock Monday morning. And then Monday's afternoon update, I'm going to go over a lot of ideas and plans I've got for the rest of the year. All right? Again, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again on Monday.